Today, we have been here in order to discuss GS3 paper, particularly Indian Economy section of Mains 2025. So, we'll be talking about different details about the pattern of questions being asked, and we'll also be discussing the questions from Indian Economy section as well as agriculture. Now, if we look at the questions, so most of the questions have been asked from Indian Economy section and few questions have been asked from Indian agriculture as well. And all these questions are based on the design syllabus as given by UPSC. Now, if you look at the topics, so questions have been asked from inclusive growth, questions have been asked from resource mobilization, questions have been asked from government budgeting, questions also have been asked from crops and cropping pattern. Then there is a question on sustainability. There is a question on food processing also. And at the same time, one of the very important question is on supply chain management. If you look at the questions, level of difficulty is from simple to moderate, and hence a student can find it convenient, easy in order to write those answers. Questions are static as well as few questions are contemporary in nature as well. Now, we'll be taking first question, and the first question talks about Human Development Index and inequality adjusted Human Development Index in context of India. And the second part of the question is that why IHDI is considered to be better indicator for inclusive growth. Now, this question has been asked by UPSC at a time wherein there is a report on World Bank which says that income equality in India has increased. So now the students, while writing the answer of this particular question, need to give this set of information also, and they need to write in this context as well. Now, while attempting the question, first of all, we need to talk about Human Development Index, the three dimensions of Human Development Index. One of the dimension is altogether life expectancy at birth, education, standard of living. Long and healthy life is measured through life expectancy at birth. Education is measured through mean years of schooling and expected years of schooling, while standard of living is measured by gross national income measured in dollar terms based on PPP, purchasing power parity. Now, if you look at inequality adjusted Human Development Index, so it discounts each dimension's average value according to level of inequality. So, if there is no inequality in the country, IHDI will be at par with HDI, and if there will be magnitude of inequality in the economy, so automatically the value of IHDI will be less than HDI. Now, if you look at the value in context of India, our HDI value, IHDI value is less than HDI value by 0.444 in 2022. What does this mean? This indicates that average human development experience in India is considerably reduced when account for disparities in health, education, and standard of living. Now, here we need to analyze few things as far as inequality in India is concerned. If we look at inequality in context of life, long and healthy life, which is measured through life expectancy at birth, then the government need to spend larger amount of money in health sector, health services, and government need to ensure that it is reducing the out-of-pocket health expenditure basically at the lower strata of society. If there is inequality at the education level, government need to ensure that how, in the what form, it need to increase its expenditure as a percentage of GDP in education so that the benefits of education touches each individual irrespective of region, religion, caste, creed. It means each and every people in India is educated at the end, and that's what no doubt would help in attaining better inequality adjusted human development index. So government need to spend largely into social sector so that we can reduce the level of inequality in health sector as well as education. The third dimension is related to a standard of living. In order to reduce the inequality related to standard of living, we need to increase the per capita income. But then the benefit of per capita income, the benefit of increased in economic growth needs to be equitable, needs to touch every individual lives. Then only it will be more inclusive. It will reach larger section of the society. And that's why in this context, there is a need to mention that if inequality on these three dimensions will be reduced, India will be in a better position to attain an inclusive society. So students in this question need to mention this, that why our economic growth is far from inclusiveness. It's because of the fact that though our GDP growth has been more than 6% in the last few years, but we need to think that whether the benefits of this GDP growth is touching everyone's lives or not. And if it is not touching everyone's life, it means the growth is far from inclusive, and that will lead to income, that will lead to increased inequality. So on this pattern, this question was supposed to be answered. Second question talks about scope and significance of supply chain management in case of agricultural commodities in India. Before starting with supply chain management, students need to understand what are the different supply chains as when in context of agricultural commodity. So supply chains can involve seed cooperatives, supply chains can involve fertilizer companies, supply chains, one of the level of supply chain can be at the farmer level, because these are the one who transform inputs into finished products. Supply chain can be Food Corporation of India. Supply chain can be public distribution system. Supply chain can be agriculture mandis. Supply chain can be regulated mandis also. And after all, consumers. So supply chain management involves all set of activities from procurement of inputs, that is seeds, fertilizers, to converting them or processing them into finished products by farmers, and taking those finished products to the mandis or to regulated mandis or to Food Corporation of India. Finally, we are able to provide those finished products to ultimate consumers. So overall, when we talk about supply chain management, it involves all set of activities, whether it's transportation, any issue related to storage, any issue related to warehouse, all these issues will be part of supply chain management. Now, what is the scope? The question has been asked about a scope and significance of supply chain management. Now, in order to answer the scope and significance, we need to understand that no supply chain management or poor supply chain management, then what can be the problem? So, the first and foremost challenge in case of poor supply chain management will be that there will be a lot of food wastages. And we know in India that there is a lot of wastages at each and every value chains. Take an example. A farmer produces potato, tomato, onion. So at the time of harvesting in the fields, there is wastage. It takes the produce to a warehouse or a storage house. You can find wastages at that place also. Then that produce is being taken to local mandis or regulated mandis or wholesale mandis. You can find wastages there also. Then the same set of produce is taken to retailer shops. You can find wastages there also. Now a consumer when buy those set of products, so at his or her home also there is wastages. Now when those produce is being processed in the form of finished products for the consumption, so each and every kitchen or household you can find wastages. So what we are saying that in case of India, particularly in case of agricultural commodity, there is wastage at each and every supply chain units. Now, if we could reduce the wastage, that will largely resolve the problem of price rise in context of agricultural commodity. And that's what the students need to, while writing the answer of this particular question, students need to focus on that how the supply chain management can lead to better management of agricultural commodities. And that's why if you look at the scope and significance, that's what I have written, that it will also help in optimization of capacity. It will also help in improving post-harvest management. The students need to draw a diagrammatic representation of how supply chain management will look like in case of agricultural commodity. And for you all, you need to directly mention that how this supply chain management can be. I am drawing a brief case so that you can have a broader outline of how supply chain management looks like in case of agricultural commodity. Let's say you are procuring seeds from seeds cooperative. Let's say seeds cooperative. Then fertilizers from fertilizer company. All these are coming at the farmer's level. Farmer processing or transforming these inputs into finished products. Finally, it is taking this transportation to the local mandi or regulated mandi. From there or directly to the farmers, they can also take it back to the Food Corporation of India. Now, from Food Corporation of India, one set of supply chain can be public distribution system, and from public distribution system through central issue price, it can go to the final consumers. Now, what was expected from set of students, that they need to have such diagrammatic representation in order to showcase that how supply chain management in case of agricultural commodities looks like. So these was must for the students to draw so as to give a fair idea as to how supply chain management will work in context of agricultural commodities. So again, I am repeating: seeds from seeds cooperative, fertilizers from fertilizer companies will go to the farmers along with other set of raw materials and inputs. Farmers will be processing these into finished products. These finished products will be going into local mandis or regulated mandis or Food Corporation of India, and from there Food Corporation of India through public distribution system, it will go to the end consumers. So these process involves procurement of inputs, transforming them into finished products, and finally it is going to end consumers. So all these, it involves all sets of activities, right from transportation to warehouse to storage. All these will be part of supply chain management. Now, if you look at the third question says that what are the challenges before the Indian economy when the world is moving away from free trade and multilateralism to protectionism and bilateralism, and how can these challenges be met? Students, you need to have a fair idea that in spite of formation of WTO in 1995, the world was far away from multilateralism. Initially, it was felt that the countries will come together on a common consensus as far as international trade is concerned, but you always know that self-interest will always prevail, and that's why till today WTO is struggling to come out with a consensus which can lead to multilateralism. Now when USA has imposed tariff barriers, now the situation is far from multilateralism, and in fact multilateralism has been narrowed down to bilateralism, unilateralism, and further leading to protectionism. Now this set of protectionism was being felt post-pandemic by different countries. And the only motive was that each and every country was trying their best in order to protect the self-interest. Now, from 27th of August, if you look at India, so US government has imposed additional penalty of 25% of Indian goods on Indian goods entering US markets. So automatically, India will definitely look for, protecting its interests. And that's what is the major challenge with India, that today, when each and every country is looking for self-interest, how India is going to protect its own self-interest. So the first challenge with India is that there will be supply chain disruptions, because it's not only about the exports. India has been also importing critical minerals, important inputs raw materials from other countries for its export oriented growth. So that will also be a big hit. Second important point is that India will be looking for another set of markets, largely African markets or European markets, where it can go for expanding its footprint. The next set of challenge will be, there can be a chance that when the conflict between or tariff war between India and USA, if it escalates further, so it might happen that, Indians' export of services also will be at problem. So the major challenge, in a nutshell, you can say that what are the areas or key concerns for India? The key concerns for India will be pharmaceutical sectors, gems and jewelry, leather and textiles. So these are labor intensive sectors which involves larger set of labor. So automatically, when Indian products in USA will not be competitive, so their production will be halted, and automatically that may lead to increase in unemployment numbers also in case of these particular sectors. So this is going to be a problem, immediate problem, and we do not know whether India and USA will come to certain terms or not. Second important, how these challenges can be made. So automatically, the foremost, step India should look towards is that India need to diversify its market as well as deal in diverse range of products. So both the things India need to do it. India need to focus upon diversifying markets as well as diversifying set of products as well. Second important point is that India need to speed up its expenditure on research and development. India need to expand. India need to encourage innovation, because encouraging research and innovation will no doubt reduce the level of cost of production, and when we are able to reduce the cost of production, our products will be competitive in rest of the world. Second important point is that India need to focus more on free trade agreements with strategic partners, wherein recently when India went ahead with free trade agreement with England, so automatically both the countries will be benefited on similar patterns. India need to go ahead with more of FTAs with its strategic partners. And last but not the least, the most important point is that India need to take all set of initiatives which make Indian economy self-reliant. And in order to make Indian economy self-reliant, first of all, we need to look at Indian youths. How we can make our Indian youths to be self-reliant. So this can only be made through developing capabilities. So if you are able to ensure that Indian youths are capable enough, so automatically Indian youths will not be productive to the society, but will be productive to the economy as well. Now, when Indian youths are self-reliant, so automatically we need to ensure that whether Indian institutions are self-reliant or not. And when both Indians and Indian institutions will be self-reliant, automatically that will ensure Indian economy to be self-reliant. So today, the focus shall be on enhancing bilateralism through trade, through free trade agreements. At the same time, India need to diversify its markets as well as products. Second, India need to increase its research and development expenditure, and at the same time, India need to do all possible things which it can do for making Indian economy self-reliant. And in order to make Indian economic self-reliant, we need to understand that we do have more than 1.4 billion consumers. These consumers itself are the driving force of the Indian economy, and that's why we need to ensure that whatever we consume, it shall not only be in our individual interest, but it shall also be in national interest. And henceforth, we'll be able to create a self-reliant India. That's what the pattern of answers should be for question number 3. Now, we move ahead with the factors influencing decision of the farmers on the selection of high-value crops in India. Now, this is very traditional questions, and most of the context of this question has always been given in Economic Survey 23-24 and 24-25. Now, if you look at agriculture sector and if you look at the cropping pattern, so largely cropping pattern most of the time is largely dominated by cereals. But in recent years, if you look at the transition, now the transition is towards high valued crops. Now, if you look at the three important sectors, if you look at livestock, if you look at horticulture, if you look at fisheries, these are the major contributors in agriculture growth as well as Indian economic growth. Now, when these sectors are major drivers of agriculture and economic growth, it means larger set of activities are being performed in these particular sectors. And that's why that is a justification that most of the farmers have switched over to these particular sectors. Now, if you look at the growth of these particular sectors, from fiscal year 15 to fiscal year 23, the fisheries as well as livestock have grown by around 13% annually. So that's what is a growth rate which India will always encourage to have. And that's why this shows that how these two sectors have been contributing to agriculture growth and economic growth. Apart from, as far as agriculture sector is concerned, horticulture sector is concerned, horticulture sector is more productive and at the same time, farmers are largely switching over to horticulture. And if you go by the export numbers, so in India, in fiscal year 23-24, fresh grapes have been exported and the value of that is 3,460 crores of Indian rupees we have exported grapes. So in case of horticulture, if we can attain such a high value of near about 3,500 crores of rupees of grapes being exported from India, we can well understand the potential of this particular sector for agriculture as well as for Indian economic growth. So if such is the potential of this sector and such is the high value of exports of horticulture from India to other countries, that's what is the justification that our farmers have switched over to these particular sectors. Apart from it, floriculture in India, there is a larger demand of Indian flowers, and floriculture is another sunrise sector in India. And that's why in the near future, that will give a huge export value in context of India. Now, what can be the reasons behind selections of these particular crops? So reasons are global demand, no doubt. Our farmers will always like to tap the potential opportunity if there is demand of Indian livestock products, Indian fisheries, Indian horticulture products. Second important point is that climate change is also one of the reasons why Indian farmers have switched over to high value or high value crops in India. Now, another important point which you need to note that there is changing dietary preferences also, not only in India but abroad also. Now, if you look at the consumption pattern in India, so Indians now are switching from carbs to fats and proteins. So more of fats and proteins will only come from fisheries, only come from fruits and vegetables and other related products. And that's why there is a larger, in the near future also, even if forget export, India's consumption demand, there will be huge Indian consumption demand of horticulture products, wherein fisheries and as well as livestock. And it is always feared that even with this particular growth, we will not be able to meet our consumption demand in the near future, because there is change in per capita income also in India. So when there will be change in or increase in per capita income, so automatically the one who will be having larger income will be changing its consumption pattern, changing his overall portfolio of consumption, and then he will be shifting to more nutrient-based foods, and nutrient-based foods will come from green leafy vegetables, fruits, dairy products, and all these are going to be largely contributing to agriculture sector as well as India's economic growth. And our farmers in the near future will definitely moving towards making a transition towards these particular sectors. So if you look at the regions, so region you need to give, first of all, there is a global demand. Second important point I told you all, that there is climate change, there is changing dietary or consumption preferences also. Then no doubt farmers will look for their profitability also. If they are getting higher prices or higher profits from these particular sectors, preferably, livestock, fisheries or horticulture. So definitely they will switch over to those particular crops. And the most important reason is also that government is also providing lot of support to these particular sectors, and that's what is incentivizing farmers also, so that they can be encouraged to enter into these particular sectors so that they can increase the productivity. So these are the reasons why our farmers are switching over to high value crops. If you look at the fifth question, it talks about a scope of food processing industries in India, and it also talks about measures taken by the government in food processing industry for generating employment opportunity. Now, if you look at food processing industry, and if you go by the data, it talks that it consists of around 11.7% of India's total exports. Now, this number itself conveys or justifies its contribution in India's GDP. And when 11.7 or 12% near about it is contributing to India's exports, its contribution in GDP and employment generation cannot be denied. More the exports, more will be its contribution in GDP, more will be contribution in GDP in terms of output generation, more will be employment generation also. Now, if we look at the scope of this particular industry, set of industries, so as I told, it was justified by the numbers that it is largely contributing in exports, it is largely contributing in GDP, it is largely contributing in employment generation, it is making Indian exports competitive. At the same time, it is also providing raw materials, base for the raw materials for further industries also. Because few of the products being produced in food processing industries becomes raw materials for other set of industries. Next important point, if you look at food processing industry, so we need to look at a different set of dimensions. In India, in recent days, if you look at the contribution of livestock sector, contribution of horticulture sector, contribution of fisheries, eggs, meat, all these sectors are performing very well. Production and productivity in these sectors have been very, very high. And these sectors will be providing raw materials for the food processing sector. So automatically, if there are certain products, meat products or egg products, which remain unused, so that can be used as a raw material for food processing industry. The second important point in case of food processing industry is that in the near future, India's consumption demand for processed foods is also going to be increased, and this is because of the fact that there is change in lifestyles. The per capita income is increasing, and the traditional pattern of making few products such as pickles at home, papad at home, jam at home, now that is being changing, and people are not finding it convenient, and they are finding it time consuming. So altogether they are going for processed foods. So automatically, why to prepare papad at home rather buy ready-made from certain shops. So that's what is increasing the importance of food processing industry, and that's how it will be contributing in employment generation. At the same time, government has been also introducing different set of schemes in order to influence food processing industry. Three schemes I have mentioned here are very, very important. One of the scheme is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. The second set of scheme which was launched in 2021, that was production linked incentive scheme for food processing industries, and this was a scheme which ensures that our processed food products are globally competitive. The third scheme which was being launched by the government was Pradhan Mantri Formalization of Micro Food Processing Enterprises, which was launched in 2022. So all these three schemes are the most important schemes which are very, very helpful for food processing industries. And when food processing industries will grow, definitely that will help in employment generation in these particular industries. Now we'll move towards question number 6. And question number 6 talks about fiscal health index. Explain how fiscal health index can be used as a tool for assessing the fiscal performance of states in India, and in what way would it encourage the states to adopt prudent and sustainable fiscal policy. Now, if you look at the 5 parameters of fiscal health index by Niti Aayog, those 5 parameters itself is a way out wherein by focusing upon those 5 parameters, the state will be able to have sustainable fiscal policies, or they will have, sustainable finance with them. Now, if you look at the 5 parameters which define fiscal health index, the first parameter is revenue generation and mobilization, and these can be measured through assessment of a state's own revenue receipts, tax buoyancy, and non-tax revenue generation. Now, if you look at tax buoyancy simply conveys that how your tax receipts are increasing with the increase in state GDP. Now, a tax will always be buoyant when your revenue is also increasing in line with, gross domestic product of that particular state. What is the level of a state's own receipts? So these will all together define revenue generation and mobilization for the state. Second parameter of fiscal health index is talking about expenditure management and prioritization. Now, this can be managed or measured through efficiency in expenditure allocation, prioritization of capital expenditure, and adherence to fiscal discipline. Now, here we need to understand that in the recent years, few of the states have started taking certain abnormal practices in terms of luring voters by giving lot of cash incentives. In recent days, whenever there is state elections, there are different type of freebies being announced by the state government, and that's what may not be good for the fiscal health of that particular state, and that's why expenditure management and prioritization is one of the very good measure of our parameter of fiscal health index. Third important point will be debt management. Debt management will be analyzed through debt to GDP ratio of states, interest payment burdens, and overall sustainability of debt portfolio. Now, if you look at the debt management, there are a few states which are really finding it tough in order to manage the states, whether it's Himachal Pradesh, whether it's Maharashtra, whether it's Karnataka. They are not able to roll out the welfare schemes also because of increasing debt. And that's why the debt to GDP ratio of that particular state is one of the variable which can directly find it out, which can directly convey the capacity of the state with its income level in order to repay its debt. So debt to GDP ratio simply talks about how, as a state, your income or GDP of your state is in what condition in order to repay the existing or future upcoming debt. Next important point parameter is fiscal deficit management. It talks about it will be measured through fiscal deficit numbers of each and every state, and whether those particular states are following statutory limits regarding fiscal deficit or not. And last point will be, last parameter is overall fiscal sustainability. It is composite analysis of revenue, expenditure, deficit and debt indicators to gauge long-term fiscal health. So here we need to understand that fiscal health index is measured through 5 parameters. The first parameter I told you all that, or you should write that it is based on revenue generation and mobilization. The second parameters we talk about prudential expenditure management and prioritization of expenditure. The third important parameter we talk about debt management of the state. The fourth parameter we talked about fiscal health of the state or fiscal deficit management of the state, and that will be measured through fiscal deficit numbers of each and every state. This is also very, very important if you want to analyze the overall deficit of a particular state. So this parameter is one of the important indicator of fiscal position of a particular state. And the fifth parameter is composite parameter, which talks about revenue, which talks about expenditure, which talks about deficit, which talks about debt, and so that whether these 4 numbers, revenue, expenditure, deficit and debt, to what extent they will be in a position to decide fiscal health of the state in the near future. If you again see the question says that in what way would it encourage the states to adopt prudent, sustainable fiscal policy? Now, if you look at fiscal health index of 2025, there are few states which have done remarkably well in managing the fiscal health of their respective states, and those states are, Odisha, followed by Chhattisgarh, Goa, Jharkhand and Gujarat. These are few states which have done well in managing its revenue, expenditure, deficit and debt numbers, and that's why in fiscal health index they are ranked very high. While there are few states also, they have not managed very well, and that's why those states need to learn from these states which have done remarkably well in terms of managing their fiscal numbers. So if you look at in what way would it encourage the states, in what way it would encourage the states to manage, so in what way it would encourage the states to adopt prudent and sustainable fiscal policy. So any state which will be managing its revenue well, expenditure well, deficit and debt well, automatically will have sustainable finance for its state in the near future. Next question will be pertaining to production-linked incentive schemes, rationale of production-linked incentive scheme. What are its achievements and in what way, functioning and outcomes of a scheme can be improved. See, we need to understand that production-linked incentive scheme was introduced in 2020. Initially, it was limited to 3 sectors, but Government of India later on, it enhanced or expanded the sector to almost 14 sectors. Now, if you look at the rationale, so rationale is that if government announces certain incentives in a particular sector, so overall, the name itself says production-linked incentive, it means it will boost manufacturing. And how it will be boosting manufacturing? This set of incentives will be encouraging investment in this particular sector. It will increase our export competitiveness and at the same time will reduce the import dependence. And basically, if you look at production-linked incentive schemes, it encourages investment in high-tech sectors like electronics, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals and specialty steel. We need to understand that we want India to be a global manufacturing hub, and that's why these type of schemes can be a contributory factor. Now, if you look at the achievements, so achievements can be analyzed through 2 important things, that overall investments in these particular sectors has crossed 1.46 lakh crore. It means approx 1.5 lakh crore. It means due to these incentives, PLI schemes, the overall investment in our country has been increased to approximately 1.5 lakh crore. And at the same time, if you look at the production and sales volume, so production and sales volume is around 12.50 lakh crore, and at the same time, it is creating this much employment. It has created this much employment also, and it is predicted that this number will go up to 12 lakhs in the near future. So if you look at the achievements, so achievements can be basically justified by these three numbers. And what are those numbers? I am again repeating. The overall investments due to production linked incentives has been around 1.5 lakh crore. The overall production and sales value due to PLI has been around 12.5 lakh crore, and both these will have created an employment generation of 9.5 lakh jobs, and in the near future this employment generation may go up to 12 lakh also. Now this is the major contribution, major achievement of production linked incentive schemes. Now what can be done to make it better? So one of the important challenges with this particular scheme was that it was not linked through, the incentives were not linked to value addition. So foremost major with the government need to take that government need to link its incentives through value addition. Then there shall be export oriented incentives also, and more or less governments shall focus upon semiconductor manufacturing, and it shall also try to address the issues behind not matching investment and sales targets by few companies. So if we can address these particular challenges, so automatically PLI schemes can be made better. However, government also need to ensure that PLI scheme shall not be a scheme in order to benefit the larger corporates, but at the same time the objective of PLI the government need to ensure that the purpose behind PLI also need to be attained or achieved. The next question is that factors responsible for depleting groundwater in India. What are the steps taken by the government to mitigate such depletion of groundwater? Now, what are those factors of groundwater depletion? The first important factor is that extraction of groundwater for agriculture purposes, and that is over extraction. Most of the time our farmers are not aware about what quant of water need to be used for a particular crop, and that's why at times we have seen in irrigation that there is a challenge of over flooding also at times, which depletes the water resource at times. So that's why we need to ensure that farmers are made aware about optimum use of water for agriculture purposes. Second important reason behind depletion is that increased urbanization and population growth, and that's what is one of the important reason behind depleting water resource, because pressure of population on land has increased, and that's what is the main reason behind extraction of larger water, and that's what is the reason behind depletion. Next important point is that industrial activities also need water, so there need to be favorable policies by the government that the fresh water need not to be used for industrial purposes. So used water or certain forms of water which are not conducive for drinking shall only be channelized for industrial activities. Pollution and deforestation can also be one of the important reasons for water depletion. And second important point, the next important point behind depletion is that cropping pattern. If you look at the regions of green revolution, the regions where we started green revolution, now in those regions you can find it out that the water base has depleted like anything. Similarly, if you look at certain geographical pockets of Maharashtra where sugarcane is being produced, this pattern of production of a single crop in a particular region for so many years is also one of the important reasons why there is a larger depletion of water, there is a larger depletion of groundwater. So these are few important factors which you can write as responsible factors for depleting water resource. But don't forget to write the behavioral factors. These behavioral factors also are one of the important reason why groundwater is depleting. Now, if you look at the set of behaviors which we do have, we need to question ourselves that whether and to what extent we do or we make an optimum use of water at our homes. And in simple set of activities, in simple gardening, in washing our vehicles, in washing utensils, in using water in washrooms and bathrooms. Now, if we can change the behavioral pattern, so largely we'll be in a better position to manage water very well. And no doubt that will not only help us, but will also help us in future generation. So it is expected that we all need to have a behavioral change, the attitudinal change, the way we use water in our day-to-day life. That is also one of the important reasons why groundwater is depleting. Now, if you look at government initiatives, so these are few government initiatives which government has introduced in order to mitigate such depletion of groundwater level. The initiatives are Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Atal Bhujal Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, rainwater harvesting and creating, public awareness about optimum use of water, and all these are major initiatives by the government. At the same time, government has also introduced Jal Jeevan Mission, launched in 2019 to provide a tap water connection to every rural household. Then Namami Gange program that also helps in managing water level. Now, the most important point which you need to write is that the government or municipalities need to come out with robust infrastructure as far as, or pipeline as far as supplying of water in different cities is concerned. Most of the time it has been seen that those pipelines are not clean, those pipelines are broken at times, there is lot of leakage of water, and hence there is lot of wastage. So these are few ground level challenges which also need to be addressed along with government initiatives in order to address the problem of groundwater depletion. And a student shall also write that all these things cannot only be overcome only by the government initiative. There need to be participative management, and in participative management, each and every individual household, each and every Indian need to take this responsibility, need to take it forward as to better and optimum use of water. So if in each of our day-to-day activity, we'll try our best to manage to use water to the optimum level, and that's what will automatically resolve the problem of water management to a larger extent. So participative management is also one of the important way out where students shall mention as far as the solutions to or initiatives along with the initiative by the government. The next important point is that how does nanotechnology offer significant advancement in the field of agriculture? I talk about nanotechnology. If you look at this technology, most of the time in agriculture sector, the farmers are not aware about what set of optimal use of resources need to be used. Whether it's right quant of seeds, right quant of fertilizer, right quant of water, or right quant of other inputs. So nanotechnology is the technology which helps to which helps the farmers in optimum use of these set of inputs for agricultural production. Now, if you look at nano fertilizers and nano pesticides, then you can see that nano fertilizers and nano pesticides use nanoparticles to deliver nutrients and agrochemicals. Now, these will definitely help definitely help farmers in coming out with right quant of these particular fertilizers and pesticides which are required for agriculture, which are required for farming. Then there are nano sensors also, nano chips. Then these provide real-time monitoring of soil conditions, crop growth, water quality. And if you will be applying nanotechnology, so it will be reducing waste, it will help in protecting environment, it will reduce cost of production also, it will increase production, and all these will help farmers in uplifting the socio-economic status. So this question number 9, you need to focus upon how nanotechnology offers significant advancement in the field of agriculture. This particular point you can mention, and this directly, convey answers the first part of the question. And second part is that how can this technology help to uplift the socio-economic state of farmers? Now, if you look at the first point and the second point, that how nanofertilizers and nanopesticides use nanoparticles to deliver nutrient and agrochemicals directly to plants or soil, reducing overuse, enhancing efficiency. That's what is the best part of nanotechnology. So overall, when you look at nanotechnology for agriculture applications, it reduces waste, protects environment, increases production, reduces the cost of production. So overall, when it does so many things, so automatically all these things will no doubt uplift the socio-economic status of the farmers. And that's why in the near future, it will be very great to see how farmers are applying nanotechnology and how they are benefited with the help of nanotechnology. So government focus or vision of doubling the farmer incomes can be attained largely with the help of nanotechnology. So these questions were direct question, and you need to know the importance of nanotechnology and at the same time what are the benefits of nanotechnology so that it can help in upliftment of socioeconomic status of the farmers. That's what is all about Indian economic section of GS paper 3 of UPSC Mains 2025.